Recently in Manhattan took place a special joint event of the Armenian Bar Association and Armenian Banking and Finance, titled Financial Education Program for Professionals. The program covered investment strategies and methods for attaining robust financial health for individuals, including discussion on new trends, developments, financial products, and pitfalls to avoid. Suren Israelian, Esquire, Vice Chair of Armenian Bar Association, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut chapter, welcomed the attendees in his opening remarks.
We are very happy to see you all here, and I would like to just give a little opening remarks, just to say the topic is a very important one, something that we ordinarily shy away talking in public, but we shouldn't. We should talk about money, and we should talk about money, and we should talk about money, because that's something, the financial health of your families as well as the community in general is of utmost importance to all of us. So we have to make sure that information is necessary for that financial health is available to you. And there is nobody better to give you that information than people who are deeply involved in it. And when I approached Sebu, I told him half a sentence. He completed the other half of the sentence. He was all into it, that we definitely need this type of information sharing program for our members, especially for the professionals. It's very easy for people, especially for Armenians, to make money, to work and make money. It's not, I didn't find that generally in my observation it's difficult. What I think the challenge is often, is how to make the money work for you. That the hard-earned money that you put your time and effort and sweat into it to earn, how do you make sure that that over time actually works for you and makes you additional money? When Galus Gulbenkian in the beginning of the last century was buying all these plots of land that nobody wanted to touch, and there was all kinds of sentiment that the horses are better than automobiles, while they were going across the world and buying these plots of land with the 50, 75, 100 years concessions for oil exploration. They had something in mind there. And he wasn't alone. It was a network. There was a montage of there was a network of the Armenians that actually went to purchase. They thought that there is something gonna happen, that they put their investment into it. That was not the time that he became the richest person on earth. That was later on. That was the investments that he was making as to how to make, and they were following on the footsteps, even a greater network of Armenians, and that was the Julfa network that was unprecedented up to that point in the human history, that propelled development of the human history far in advance. Perhaps at this point in the human history, we are at the precipice of a dawn of another era of, I think it's called the metaverse or metaphysical realities, and Armenians are functioning in it. Some of you might know that there is a boiling ecosystem of startups in Armenia that soon will start coming into the public markets in the United States and other places. And perhaps that's something to consider, but perhaps not. But those are the professionals that will tell you.
The panelists of the event were co-founders of Armenian Banking and Finance, Sebo Nahabetian and Rafi Setrakian, and Gregory J. Amerkanian, Senior Vice President of Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. The conversation began with Mr. Amerkanian describing the process of developing the strategy for financial advice for individuals seeking his guidance.
As financial advisors, we truly try to be an advisor to understand their history, understand what they're investing for, why they're investing. Is it for some sort of medium-term goal? Is it for education for kids? Is it for their retirement? Is it sort of a mixed? Do we separate that risk? Do we take some of that money and say, look, this is sort of earmarked for longer term. Some of it should be earmarked for more short term, maybe medium term. Helping clients understand that, helping people understand that is really that first step. Once we get that out of the way, then we sort of I mean, the simplest way to put it is get a feeling for where they are at point A, and then understanding where they want to be point B, and helping them get there the most efficient way possible, taking the least amount of risk.
He also brought an example of the typical allocation of assets for investors, as well as the factor ever-shifting retirement age plays in an allocation of financial assets.
So typical allocation, I would say, is probably somewhere, if I look across my clients, the average profile of my clients is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about, I don't know, maybe 55 years old, and still working. Retirement used to be 60 or 65 years old. I think most of us know that's probably not accurate anymore. No one's really retiring and saying, okay, I'm done, I'm just going to go and go to the library tomorrow, and I'm done. That's just not what people do. They tend to work part-time, they tend to find something else they teach, they do a different business. And because of that, I think it's one of the reasons why people are living a lot longer. So we try to plan for people to live. Right now we're using 95 as a age, and some clients have asked us to take that even longer, but whatever it is, but we try to help them plan for that. So if someone is 55 or 60 years old, the typical allocation for longer term money is somewhere in that 65% equity right now. So it probably was, a few years ago, it was probably closer to 70%. We've dialed it down a little bit. Exclusive what's happening in the last couple of days. Hopefully, I've been wrong and the market continues to soar, that would be great. But we've dialed it down a little bit just because valuations are maybe a little bit on the high side.
One advice Mr. Armenian gave to new investors is to write down a page of financial goals and use it as a roadmap for their investment strategy.
So when you're investing, even if it's a one page, half a page, just say, here's my philosophy, here's my goal.
What you're setting rules. You're basically setting some sort of rules for yourself, for an individual.
A framework for you to turn back to when times get very volatile, like now, to say, all right, do I go to all cash? I go, no. My investment policy statement says I should be in that, just use that example, 65% equity, 35% bonds, or what have you. So in times where the market dips tremendously, maybe now you're at 55% equity. So those times when you do your review with your advisor or on your own, you look at it and say, okay, well, it's down. Most people will say when things are down, I should sell. I don't want it to go lower. But if you think about it, contrarians, what you need to do is you need to start to sell those assets that are higher and buy the ones that are lower.
Mr. Armenian also touched on a new financial investment assets such as cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. Mr. Rafi Setrakian spoke about possible causes for the market downturn, more specifically inflation.
The inflation numbers are downright frightening. So when inflation is accelerating, the stock market does very well because it's the best place to participate in the pricing of that. Now, the good news in our economy is that we have very depressed sectors. Still recovering from COVID. Think of some of the sectors that are getting hit the last couple of days and travel related are still very, very depressed with the absence of business travel. But wages are certainly not keeping pace with inflation. Wages are going up, and I think that the flip side to some of the bad things is that there's a lot of shortages of inventories and shortages of labor to fulfill the needs, kind of all going on at the same time. But in my opinion, there's the market and the composition of the market that Greg was talking about, with being very top-heavy with some unicorn-type companies that are exceptionally secular growers and are maybe deserving of very substantial multiples. But just remember that fair multiples of earnings should be in line with growth rates. So if you're willing to pay 20 times earnings, which what the market I believe is trading right around today, it trades at 20 times 2022 estimates. When the 10-year is at 1.5% at a very low level, and there's no opportunities to put it in, they're inflated. It's an inflated price-earnings ratio. But typically, you want to be buying, you want to be paying a multiple like that when the company is where a company or the market is growing in a similar growth rate, and their earnings growth is reflective. And I continue to see a lot of mismatches with companies trading at 2 times their growth rate when a couple of years ago they were trading in line with their growth rate. So there is a lot of that going on.
Mr. Sebun Apetyan also spoke about cryptocurrency and shared his thoughts on the future of this new class of financial assets.
Here one day, gone the next. I think we're beyond that now with crypto and Bitcoin. I think what you'll see is, and if you are in the market, if you do invest in crypto and other tokens, there's so many of them, right? They're not all gonna, be here 5-10 years from now, but some of them and a lot of them will. And already, if you think about it, everything we do is digital, right? Your dollars are digital. Everyone uses credit cards. You're banking online. We've been doing this forever. It's just this new wave, a new form of it that has emerged that is, like you said, very difficult to understand. Like the mining side of it, how did some guy invent this process that? But at some point, everything starts in a certain format, and there's a lot of confusion and uncertainty around it. Once it becomes a little more known, we're like, wait, why were we ever investing in shares and stocks or real estate? We're like, who knows? I don't know. I'm sure that won't happen, but I do think it's going to be much more commercial and comfortable for a retail investor.
An informative Q&A followed, during which the attendees had an opportunity to have their questions answered by the panelists. The second part of the event included short 3-minute presentations from several prominent members of the Armenian business community. Attorney Yelena Nersesyan introduced each speaker. The first was real estate broker Peter Zakyan, who spoke about the importance of investing in real estate in times of instability and quoted several historical figures on the topic of real estate investments.
Times like now and similar previous events such as 2008, the crisis, 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, and other similar events are always considered to be a great opportunity to own real estate in one of the greatest cities in the world, which is New York City. So I'm gonna quote some of the brilliant people throughout the history and put it in my own words. 90% of all millionaires became so just owning real estate. As John Rockefeller once quoted, the major fortunes in America have been made in land. Everyone wants a piece of land, which is one of our, as Armenians, one of our things that we are working hard on just to keep the land, so as a concept. Well, first because they aren't making any more of it. And second, it's the only sure investment that helps to grow rich in your sleep. It can never depreciate, but it will double its value in decades. Real estate is an imperishable asset, ever increasing in value. It's the most solid security that human ingenuity has devised. It's the basis of all security and about the only indestructible security. It can be lost or stolen, nor can be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care. It is about the safest investment in the world. I'll quote Teddy Roosevelt's words when he mentioned, "Every person who invests in well-selected real estate in a growing section of a prosperous community adopts the surest and safest method of becoming independent, for real estate is the basis of wealth." Lastly, and most importantly, as Mr. Israelian said, it's not like money is not brains to have it, but I will put it in different terms. Risk comes from not knowing what you are doing, yet you don't have to be smarter than the others. All what you need to know, what you own and why you own it.
Mr. Tigran Kaparagian, a financial advisor to corporations, business owners, and individuals, addressed the young people in the audience, urging them to begin securing their financial future from early on.
Let's say you're a young person and you're 25 years old and you have a goal. Say it's 100,000. It could be 1,000,000. Whatever the number is, you can interpolate it, okay? If you make roughly 8% return, and you start when you're 25, and you want to reach it at 50. Okay, that's your goal. I want 100,000 when I'm 50. That's what I want. All you have to put aside is $104 a month. Not that hard, right? Now, if you wait 5 years, well, then you got to put away $168 a month. But then, you know, I'm busy, I'm spending, I'm going to go out to the Hamptons and party, and I'm going to rent a house in Fire Island. Yeah, let me wait 10 more years. Well, if you wait 10 more years, well, then you have to put aside $545 a month, okay? Now you're 45 years old. You're saying, oh man, I need that $100,000, what am I going to do? Well, then you have to put aside $1,358 a month, okay? So, my goal in telling you this small story is run to a financial advisor, whether it's someone you know, someone your parents know, whatever. Do a Roth IRA. Start with something that puts you on a path to financial security, because the time you have now is so imperative when you're young, that you have so much time ahead of you. It doesn't matter what the market does. Over time, you're going to beat the market. Because you have, it's not time, I'm sorry to be so cliche, my financial professional friends, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. As long as you've been in the market for a while, you'll go.
Scientist and angel investor Armen Farlopian introduced the audience to Cognaze, a fintech company founded by serial entrepreneur Vahe Antonians in Armenia.
Cognaze, in part, has emerged from such an ecosystem, from such a network. Cognaze is a fintech using advanced technologies such as computer vision to automate financial document processing. For example, things like financial spreading, things around loan applications in commercial real estate, items even in terms of corporate finance, in terms of its operation. What's intriguing and very inspiring to serve on the advisory board for Cognaze and as an investor in Cognaze is Vahe's 50-person team operates like a 5,000-person team. I do not mean that by any stretch as a hyperbole, I mean that quite literally. And this is how the company commands such a fantastic valuation on its revenue. So with this, would be delighted to speak further during the break time. I can see actually among us at least 5 angels, folks contributing to such companies at key times with capital, with connections, with advice. And in contrast, as Peter said earlier in terms of real estate, this actually comes with significant risk. But the risk is tied to something also for country building. So Armenia's GDP right now is only 12 billion. What would be the mechanism to add 20 billion to it? No country by itself can triple its own economy. This is an advantage of being small. And we are executing against this startup strategy to strengthen the economy and by extension security.
Orion Worldwide Innovation CEO and founder Emma Rakelian emphasized the importance of collaboration and spoke about the success of Armenian startups.
3 years ago, and this is something, Sebo, you may remember, 3 years ago, Armenians in banking and finance had a phenomenal event when they invited investors and people who are doing acceleration, incubation of innovation. 3 years ago, such a visionary thing to do. I was on the panel. My speech was, I started to learn more about how to not only incubate, accelerate the growth, because exponential growth is not waiting. So with that, I said, we're gonna create global innovation hub for Armenia and non-Armenians, global. So we're gonna accelerate. That was 3 years ago. By all means, with all the pleasure, I'm gonna say, with my co-founding partner, Armen Farlopian, my dear scientist, my dear colleague, angel, who actually taught me to be an angel, and only in less than 2 years, I have 8 positions as an angel investor. So I could stop by doing all this life insurance thing, I'm safe. I could stop by all this, so many investments I did in real estate. Please don't stop, you can do a lot more. Why? Because that money is gonna work for you later, for your community, for your Armenia, for your country, whatever country you're.
Music entertainment was provided by violinist Dr. Nune Melik. With many initiatives planned in the near future, Armenian Bar Association and Armenian Banking and Finance continue its important work in serving our community here in US and in motherland.